Well, the Week 2 lines have been released, and I'm sure like most of you, I don't like making any final decisions here this early in the week. However, do like giving them a look, seeing my first impressions. Let's go through a couple of them. First off, the Thursday night game. What a fabulous Thursday night game we have on tap. Chicago Bears visiting the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, one of the real surprises of the week last week, getting beat at home by the San Francisco 49ers and really beaten up. That game was not as close as the scoreboard would indicate. 49ers just pushed the Packers around in Lambeau. This is a Packers team that was 15-1 last year. That was a really surprising result. Now they get their NFC North rival, Chicago Bears, in there. The Bears looked really good last week. A lot of people really high on the Bears this season after the additions in the offseason to their offense. And we saw those additions on Sunday against the Colts. Brandon Marshall is clearly now the go-to guy on this Bears offense. Jay Cutler, you could tell, is already very comfortable with him. Not a surprise. They did play together before in Denver, so they already had some familiarity. Also, I was very impressed with rookie wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey. I do think Alshon Jeffrey is going to end up taking over Devin Hester's starting role opposite Brandon Marshall. They'll use Hester in the role he's more suited for, which is slot receiver and a guy who you just sort of try to get the ball in his hands in space instead of a true wide receiver. Jeffrey was impressive. That Bears offense was impressive. Michael Bush, their new free agent acquisition, gave them some good hard running. This Green Bay Packers defense, we know, is not strong. They do not have a good defense. So I do expect the Chicago Bears offense to have some success. Green Bay currently a 5.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. And it doesn't surprise me that Green Bay is a 5.5-point favorite. And really, even though I just got finished saying I expect the Bears to have all this success, and I do, boy, it'd be tough. It'd be tough. At this point, early in the week, I do lean towards Green Bay in this game. This is a Packers team, I've just seen that offense too many times. 35 points a game last year. They have everybody back. After a performance like that in Week 1, I just find it hard to believe they're not going to be able to regroup and get it together in Week 2 against a team they're intimately familiar with. And the Chicago Bears defense is no San Francisco 49ers defense. They had real problems in the secondary last season, finished 28th, I believe, in the NFL in pass defense. And while they made some plays against the Colts, they forced some turnovers, Andrew Luck had some success too. That Bears defense is not to be feared. Again, they're no San Francisco 49ers. So the Packers offense, expect them to look more like what we saw last year than what we saw in Week 1 in this game on Thursday night. Still, should be an excellent game. Really excited for this game. Again, Green Bay, a 5.5-point favorite. Another game I'm looking forward to this weekend, New York Jets. Another surprise of Week 1, the Jets hanging 48 on Buffalo. It had all been so negative about how the Jets were going to be so bad this year, a circus, their offense was going to be terrible, how were they going to score? Not hearing much of that talk now after a blowout win over the Buffalo Bills. A team, by the way, in Buffalo that a lot of people had making a real move this year in the AFC East. Buffalo really made over that defense in the offseason, signing defensive ends Mario Williams, Mark Anderson. 4 of their 5 first top draft picks were defensive players. So a new defense personnel-wise for Buffalo look like that same old pathetic Bills defense, though, in Week 1. We'll see if the Jets can look like they did against Buffalo Week 2 on the road in Pittsburgh, a Steelers team that suffered through a disappointing loss. It was disappointing for me, too. I was on Pittsburgh in that game, thought Pittsburgh was going to come out and really play better on defense. They played all right in the beginning of the game, but once Manning got his legs under him, it was same old Peyton Manning. Broncos scored in their last 4 possessions, just going right down the field on that Steelers defense. I was a little surprised to see that. I will be surprised if the same thing happens this week against the New York Jets, but again, if we see that Jets offense we saw last week that hung 48 on Buffalo, not sure if they're going to get to 48 on Pittsburgh, but they're going to score some points now. Remember, Pittsburgh's still going to be without James Harrison, their best player on defense. Pittsburgh is a 6.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ right now. Pittsburgh minus 6.5, and this will no doubt be one of the marquee games of the weekend. I do look for the Steelers to win that game. However, I'm a little hesitant about backing the Steelers after what I saw in Week 1. As I said, they surprised me a little bit. I thought that defense would play a little better. They did not look like the fearsome, intimidating unit that they were last year and that you've come to expect from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another game, great game this Week 2 weekend. Baltimore on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. BETDAQ does not yet have a line for this game yet. I expect it here in the next few hours. Vegas has put out the Eagles as a 2.5-point favorite in this game. The Baltimore Ravens looked really good last night in blowing out the Cincinnati Bengals. That defense looks strong. You expect that, but it was the offense that was just eye-opening. Joe Flacco looked like a franchise quarterback instead of a liability, which most people have thought he was throughout most of his career at Baltimore. Now, I know that his performance in the AFC Championship game last year sort of erased a lot of those doubts. And anybody who watched him last night, any doubts that were remaining, I tell you what, not many doubts left about Joe Flacco after seeing him last night against a Bengals defense that was 7th in the league last year in total defense. I mean, a good Cincinnati defense. Philadelphia, on the other hand, Philadelphia is the home team in this game. They almost really lost a surprising game to the Cleveland Browns. I mean, Philadelphia was a 9-point favorite in that game. I liked Philadelphia in the game. I know a lot of people did. Philadelphia, there was heavy public money on Philadelphia in this game, and they really should have lost that game. If Brandon Weeden, the Browns quarterback, had not put forth such a putrid performance, a 4-interception performance, Philadelphia would have lost. Michael Vick threw a bunch of interceptions himself. Philadelphia offense never able to get going, ended up pulling out a 1-point win. Will they be able to regroup at home against a Ravens defense that you would think is better than the Browns defense? You know, I was about to just go ahead and say a Ravens defense will be a step up in class from the Cleveland Browns defense. Maybe we're not giving enough credit to this Cleveland Browns defense. Cleveland was second in the league last year in pass defense. They had a solid defense last year, and I tell you what, if Sunday was any indication, they might be better than solid this year. Cleveland has got to get Brandon Weeden out of the lineup. They have Colt McCoy, a guy who, hey, he doesn't have the strongest of arms, might never be a Pro Bowl player, but he's not going to go 12 of 35 with 4 interceptions or whatever Weeden's stat line was. It was something like that. I know they drafted Weeden in the first round. I understand they think they know what they have in Colt McCoy. They want to see what they might have in Brandon Weeden. You cannot sacrifice a season just to see if your first round pick is any good, okay? Right now, Colt McCoy, obviously a better quarterback than Brandon Weeden. And hey, I know I haven't been at practices. I'm sure Mike Holmgren and Pat Shurmur know more about football. They've probably forgotten more about football than I know about football. However, I do know that a rookie quarterback throwing 4 interceptions and a 1-point loss, you got to do something about that. You got to put somebody on the field that gives your team a chance to win. And I'll be curious to see how long the Cleveland Browns decide to stick with Brandon Weeden. But maybe we're not giving enough credit to that Browns defense. Again, they did almost upset Philadelphia. Philadelphia, as I said, in Vegas, currently a 2.5-point favorite this week at home against Baltimore. We'll be watching that game. That's a very interesting game. Another game I'm sure everybody will be tuning into, the primetime Sunday night game. Detroit Lions visit the San Francisco 49ers, play out there in San Francisco. San Francisco currently installed as a 6.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. Really tough to bet against the Niners after what you saw in Week 1. Green Bay last year looked like the best team in the league, 15-1 in the regular season, and absolutely slapped around, pushed around by this tough, physical San Francisco 49ers defense. I mean, the 49ers defense, I know they were great last year. They returned just about everybody. The special thing about that defense, unlike other great defenses like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, where some of their best players are in their mid-30s, and even though those defenses are still great, you know the window is closing, you know their time is about done until they start declining. This 49ers defense, their best players are in the midst of their prime. What about Patrick Willis? Is there a better linebacker in the NFL than Patrick Willis? The answer to that question is no. Now, the 49ers are going to have their hands full, not like they didn't just have their hands full with Green Bay, but the Lions can score some points. The Lions coming in there, and they got a great offense there. Matt Stafford led the league in pass attempts last year. They probably have the best wide receiver in the league out there in Calvin Johnson. Detroit had to be disappointed with their Week 1 performance, almost losing a home game to the St. Louis Rams. The Rams were 2-14 last season. I know it's a new era there with Jeff Fisher taking over now, but Lions were a 7-point favorite in that game. Most people expected them to win relatively easily. They had all kinds of trouble, just squeaked out a win at the end. I believe they scored that final touchdown with 11 seconds left. Could have lost that game. Is that indicative of the Rams being better this year? The Lions maybe not being quite as good as we thought, or maybe neither. Maybe the Rams are just what we thought. Maybe the Lions were not able to just get it going in Week 1. Week 2 will tell us a lot. If this Detroit team is able to go out there in San Francisco and hang up some points on a Niners defense that we know is really good, then maybe it was just an aberration, that sort of bad performance against the Rams in Week 1. But Detroit on defense, they slipped last year. Maybe we're overrating this Detroit team. I had high hopes for this Detroit team heading into the season. I thought they might be able to challenge Green Bay for supremacy in the NFC North. But I'm hedging my bets a little bit after seeing them week 1 against the Rams. Really anxious to see how they'll do as 6.5-point underdogs in San Francisco week 2. And as impressed as I was with the 49ers, it's going to be tough for me. Going to be really tough for me to give this Detroit Lions team 6.5 points. I still have too much belief in this Lions team and what they can do. As of right now, I know it's extremely early. Like I said, I don't like to make any final decisions until Thursday or Friday anyway. But I do lean towards Detroit and the points in that game, especially if this line gets up to 7. If you give me San Francisco, if it gets up to 7, 7.5, and you can give me Detroit in a touchdown or more, it's going to be hard for me not to jump on that game. Last week two game I want to mention, big time game, the Monday Night Football game. Peyton Manning in his second game, Peyton Manning and the Broncos going across the country, playing on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta currently installed as a 3-point favorite in this game in BETDAQ. Tell you what, after watching the Denver Broncos, after watching Peyton Manning, boy, you get a chance to back that team as underdogs. Very, very tempting. That Broncos secondary can be had. You can generate some big plays against that secondary. Not a great secondary, but they have a good front seven on defense with those young, great pass rushers and Von Miller and Elvis Dumervil. And that offense looked like Indianapolis Colts 2.0. And we all know the Colts, what a great team they were to back throughout that Manning era. And I'll tell you what, Denver on the road, even though I know the Falcons played great last week. Yeah, they hung 40 points on the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people think the Falcons are sort of a dark horse Super Bowl team this year. They are playing at home. They've been very good at home throughout the Matt Ryan era. But I'll tell you what, I don't know if I'll bet on the Broncos. I don't know if I'll bet against the Falcons here. But I can guarantee you I will not be betting on the Falcons. After betting against the Broncos in week 1, betting on the Steelers, watching that game, I'm not going to do it in week 2. I'm not going to go again, what, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I believe that's a saying, or it's something like that, and I'm not going to be fooled twice in a row by this Denver Broncos team. That is a Monday night game. The whole world will be tuning in, or at least the whole country. I know in Europe, it's on in the middle of the night, so maybe all of Europe won't be tuned into that game. I will be tuned in, front and center, eager to see Peyton Manning, what he's going to do week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons. Now again, later in the week, we'll have picks on these games. 4-2 on our picks last week. 2-2 in the NFL. Got both of our college football picks right. We'll be posting our picks maybe Friday here on BETDAQ NFL. And Sunday, if you didn't join us last Sunday, join us on Sunday. We are streaming live from the BETDAQ NFL War Room. I have 6 games on in front of me at any time. You can get with me through Facebook, through Twitter, through the comment section on the page with any thoughts you might have on any of the games, any questions you got for me. I'll get to any of them. So be sure Sunday to check us out in the live stream from the BETDAQ NFL War Room. I'll be speaking to you guys in a couple of days. Till then, I'm John Arnett for BETDAQ NFL.